On today's show, the Cavs made a big statement against the Milwaukee Bucks on Friday night. Plus, we'll talk about the return of Max Strus and Dean Wade. That's all straight ahead right here on Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, my new Substack, The Inside Shot, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, sponsored by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. The Cleveland Cavaliers with a blowout win over the Milwaukee Bucks, 124-101 final score. Don't think the game was that close. Donovan Mitchell was awesome, but this was a game where I thought that the Cavs made a statement. Milwaukee obviously coming off winning the NBA Cup. I do think that this was probably a bit of an emotional letdown spot for them. And of course, Damian Lillard did not play for Milwaukee. I think those two things need to be mentioned before I dive further into this. But I think that the Cavs looked at the Bucks on Friday night as a team that is playing much better basketball than when the Cavs saw Milwaukee twice earlier this season, in which they won two very close games. I believe they won those two games by a combined 3 points. And they looked at them as a better team than that team they played back in early November. They looked at them as a challenge. They looked at them as a team that they view as a threat near the top of the Eastern Conference. Now, I think that there's too much space between the Cavs and the Bucks for Milwaukee to be a real threat in terms of seeding in the Eastern Conference. But I do think, considering their playoff experience, considering what their roster looks like, considering they have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is a two-time MVP, could win his third MVP this year. Considering all those things, I think, and the fact that that team has won a championship with its core group together outside of Damian Lillard. But I think that the Cavs looked at the Bucks as a team that, okay, that is going to be a true test in the postseason. And I think that they wanted to send a message to Milwaukee on Friday night that Milwaukee, despite all the things I just mentioned, is not on the same level as the Cavs. And I think that the Cavs made another statement, not just to the Bucks, but to the rest of the NBA, that they're for real, that they are a true championship contender, that coming into Cleveland and winning is not something teams are just going to be able to do. Milwaukee had tons of issues on both ends of the floor on Friday night. And sure, some of those issues stem from Damian Lillard not being out there because the Bucks really don't have enough creation without him on the floor. I mean, Giannis basically started the game at point guard. It just did not go well for Milwaukee. But the Cavs also forced, I thought, the Bucks into doing a lot of things that they don't necessarily want to do. I thought how the Cavs handled them defensively was really well. They limited Milwaukee's three-point attempts, which I thought was a really important part of the game on Friday night, where Milwaukee only shot 27 threes. They were 10-27. That's a great number to be at. That's awesome defense on the perimeter. Even if they shoot 37% there, the fact that they're only taking 27 of them, I think, is a really big deal. Giannis finished with 33 points, 13-22. Felt like a lot of his made baskets were kind of on putbacks and offensive rebounds, which, he finished with 14 rebounds. He had a good game, but I think the Cavs will absolutely live with what he was able to do. And, then you look at what Donovan Mitchell did, where I thought he was spectacular for the Cavs. I thought he made a statement with, the All-Star voting process getting underway on Thursday. I think Donovan Mitchell deserves to be a starter. I talked about that on yesterday's show. And I thought that this was another statement that, hey, I am one of the best guards in the league. And I am the best player on the best team in terms of record and some other metrics in the NBA as well. And I thought that this was a statement there. I thought it was a statement that, no, this Cavs team is a championship contender. They should be treated as a championship contender. They should be viewed as a championship contender. That's what Friday night was. That's what that blowout win was. And I don't think that this game was as close as the final score would indicate, right? Like it was a 23-point win. The Cavs could have won this game by 30 plus. They could have. And when they are shooting as well as they shot on Friday night, where, I think they made right around, they were at 42% from three. They were 20 of 47 from three. When they shoot like that, they're going to be awfully difficult to beat. When they shoot like that and defend the way they defended on Friday night, they're a team that I don't want to say can't be beat because there are no absolutes in the NBA, but they're a team that just the pathway to beating them when they shoot as well as they did against Milwaukee and they defend as well as they did against Milwaukee, that pathway gets really, really narrow. It's really, really narrow. It's a really difficult thing to figure out a way to beat this Cavs team when they're firing on all cylinders the way they were against the Bucks. And I do think that there was a little bit behind this where they wanted to make a statement. I think that statement, especially on a night where, there were going to be a lot of eyes on the college football playoff. As you can tell, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a Notre Dame hoodie. I'm a huge Notre Dame fan. There were always going to be a lot of eyes going on there, but a lot of the eyes in the NBA world, because there were only 3 games on Friday, could be on this Cleveland-Milwaukee game. Like this was the game of the night that people wanted to see across the NBA. The Cavs made another statement. All they've done this year repeatedly is make statements. Yeah, they have a couple of clunker losses. You look at the first loss to Atlanta, really both losses to Atlanta and loss to Miami. I don't think that loss to Boston is necessarily a bad loss. I actually think it was an impressive game that people around the league view as like not a good loss, because I don't know if there's such a thing in a league where your resume does not matter in terms of getting you into the playoffs, speaking of college football. But I do think that earned them some respect. And I think a game like this, while I don't know that it necessarily earns them some respect, it is something that you look at and say, okay, yeah, there's no real reason left to doubt what this team can be. And yeah, ultimately, we're going to have to see what they look like when the postseason arrives in April. And that's going to be a little bit of a different ball game. But as I watch them go through these sorts of games where they dominate good teams, the Bucks got off to a bad start. They were 12-3 in their last 5 games, or 13-3 in their last 5 games, I guess, if you include the Cup final. Or 13-3 in their last 16 games, if you include the NBA Cup final. And the schedule that Milwaukee had played, not great. They beat up on a bunch of bad teams. They had a couple of nice wins in there. Obviously, beating OKC on Tuesday night to win the NBA Cup was a really impressive win, especially the way they did it, holding OKC to as few points as they did. But this was a game where the Cavs could come out and make a statement, as I mentioned, that they could come out and say, we are the best team in the NBA. We should be treated as the best team in the NBA. Donovan Mitchell is an all-star starter. He should be treated as such. And this is a team that is filled with depth, right? Max Strus came back on Friday night. Dean Wade, I thought, had a really impressive performance on Friday night. And I do think that the one frustrating part about this for the Cavs is that they're still not whole. And tonight could have been an opportunity to have the whole roster available really for the first time in who knows how long. I actually don't know if there was a game last season where everybody on the Cavs was available because of just how many injuries they dealt with and all of that stuff. So that I do think is the one frustration, that Isaac Okoro is out and he's going to be out for the next couple of weeks. But getting Max Strus back was a big deal. Getting the type of performance that the Cavs got from Dean Wade was a big deal. Those are the sorts of things that this team is still getting better. That is kind of the other part that I don't think I talk about enough is, they started off 15-0 and they've been really good from the jump this season. But when you watch a game like this, it's also hard for me to look at it and say, you know what? That team's not getting better. They're just staying in place. I do think the Cavs are improving all the time. And I think they're going to continue to improve all the time, especially as they get healthier, as Max Strus gets worked back into the rotation a little bit heavier than he was on Friday night, as he starts to look more comfortable than he did on Friday night when Isaac Okoro comes back. This is a team that I continue to be impressed with, and I thought Friday night was yet another really impressive performance by the Cavaliers. I do want to talk about Max Strus because obviously he's back for the first time all season. I want to talk about his game. I also want to talk about the game that Dean Wade played because I thought that this was one of his best. And if this could be him turning the corner, I think that'd be a really good thing for the Cavs. So we're going to do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. That's robinhood.com/gold. ROBINHOOD.com/GOLD. Terms do apply. For product specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook for so many reasons, including the fact that right now on FanDuel, if you're a new customer, you bet $5, you win that first $5 bet, you've got $150 in bonus bets coming your way. Saturday, we have a loaded slate of college football games. We've got SMU taking on Penn State. Penn State laying 8.5 points in that one. Clemson going to Texas to take on the Longhorns. Texas, a 13.5 point favorite. And then the nightcap, Ohio State playing host to Tennessee. The Buckeyes, 7.5 point favorites. Maybe you like all the home favorites. Maybe you like them all laying the points. You could maybe possibly put together a parlay, or maybe you're somebody like me who I just now have my eyes on January 1st at 8:45 in the evening as Notre Dame will take on Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Notre Dame, the early line that FanDuel has out for that game because it is still 10 days away somehow. Notre Dame, 1.5 point underdogs. They opened up as a favorite. The line very quickly flipped. Got a good feeling about Notre Dame. Got a really good feeling about Notre Dame. Maybe you have a good feeling about a game tomorrow. I have a good feeling about Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. But what you need to do is head on over to FanDuel.com today. That's FANDUEL.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said at the top of the show, you can get it anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they are subscribed as well. So Max Strus made his season debut for the Cleveland Cavaliers after missing the first 27 games of the season. Game number 28 was game number 1 for Max. He finishes the night 3 of 8 shooting with 9 points. I thought he looked good. And this was never going to be a game where you looked at Max and go, wow, he really lit up the stat sheet. That was not going to be the case. He played 19 minutes, which he was right around on a 20-point threshold. I thought he moved around well, which that was the thing that I was looking for. I wanted to see, what did Max Strus look like getting up and down the floor? Did he look sudden? Did he look like a guy that trusted his ankle? Or did he maybe look like a guy that didn't trust his ankle? And I think it's fair to say that what we saw from Max on Friday night is not Max as a finished product, right? He's going to continue to get stronger. He's going to continue to build more confidence coming off of that injury. I think he's going to add more things to his game on both ends of the floor. I think that this is, and it's sort of interesting because we know who Max Strus is as a player and we know what to expect from Max Strus. But we're not going to see that right away. I think it's unfair to expect that right away. But I do think that what we saw from him on Friday night against Milwaukee was a really good start. I do. And I think that he's somebody that's going to boost this Cavs team. I think that offensively, they're going to be really, really difficult to stop when he's on the floor. I do think while he didn't start the game on Friday night against the Bucks, and I want to talk about the guy who did in Dean Wade coming up in a second, I do think that ultimately Max should be in that starting spot when he's fully integrated and back to being able to play 30 minutes a night. I think Max should be a starter full-time. I think that he fits in with that group really, really well. And some of the things I think we're going to see more of from him, I think we're going to see that 2-man game that we've seen between Sam Merrill and Evan Mobley, I think we're going to see that with Max Strus and Evan Mobley. And I think it's going to work beautifully. I think we're going to see Max Strus as a cutter more often than we did on Friday night, right? Like when you're going to be able to see him just on the floor more, those opportunities are going to increase. And I think that's where he's really going to shine. And I really, really do think that Friday night was just a quick tease about what Max Strus can do for this Cavs team. And I think he's going to, I hate to be like, he's the midseason acquisition or whatever, because I just think that's a lazy thing to do. But I think that he's a boost for this team. I think that he's coming back at the right time. It's very easy. And I was talking to somebody, not with the Cavs, I was talking to somebody else before the game on Friday night. And it's just like, this time of the year in the NBA can very much be, it's just like teams aren't playing their best. They kind of hit a wall. Max Strus changes that. He sort of injects them with energy. And I thought we saw that on Friday night. The other guy I want to talk about before I get out of here today is Dean Wade. Dean had one of his best games of the season, finished 4 of 5 from 3, which is really important because he's not been shooting the ball all that well. He was right around 30%, I believe, on the season before tonight from beyond the arc. Defensively, I don't feel like he slipped. Like, I think he's been a good defender for the most part this year, but he is certainly less valuable to this Cavs team if he's not making shots. He made shots on Friday night. He looked awesome doing it. If he can shoot like that, and of course, it's foolish to expect him to shoot 80% on threes. That's not going to happen. But he does need to be better than the 30% or whatever that number was at prior to Friday night. He needs to be better than that from deep to have the maximum impact that Dean Wade can have. This was an awesome game. I thought he defended Giannis well. I think that because he's such a versatile defender, he kind of makes his defense. So I have talked about, in particular with the core four, like how I view Evan Mobley as a ceiling raiser for the Cavs and Darius Garland as a ceiling raiser, where I kind of think Donovan Mitchell, while he does raise the ceiling, he also raises the floor up really, really high. And I think Jarrett Allen is somebody that raises the floor up really, really high. I think that because of how good this Cavs defense should be, and to be fair, has been in December, I think that the more Dean Wade is available, he sort of raises both the floor and the ceiling, because they can switch so much easier when he's on the floor. And that's a big thing that they want to do. He can defend so many positions, and you can see him defend a guy like Giannis tonight. I do wonder if Damian Lillard would have played for the Bucks, if how much time he would have spent defending Dame. Like, that's just how versatile he is. And there's not many guys in the NBA that you can look at and say, yeah, he could defend Damian Lillard or he could defend Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I'm not saying that he's going to be all defense. I'm not saying he deserves to be, but the versatility that he brings defensively is really important. And it's easier to have him on the floor for 25 minutes in a night if he's making shots as opposed to if he's missing shots, right? Like, that's one of the easiest things to observe, but that really is kind of what I view as the truth with Dean Wade. So I maybe that Friday night game against Milwaukee that we just watched is him turning the corner on a rough start to the season offensively. Maybe this will put him in a rhythm. We won't know until we see it, but I think that has to be the hope for the Cavs. Now the Cavs take on the Sixers Saturday. It is the second game of a back-to-back for both teams. Obviously, as I record this very early Saturday morning, there's no injury report for the teams. I don't know who's going to play. I do know that everybody played for the Sixers on Friday night against the Hornets. Joel Embiid played. Paul George played. Tyrese Maxey played. Everybody played for them. Now, I would imagine Maxey's going to play in Cleveland, but Paul George and Joel Embiid don't play both ends of the back-to-back. So we'll see if they play in Cleveland on Saturday night, but I will have you covered after that right here on Locked On Cavs. So like I said earlier, you can get the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor right now. Hit that thumbs up button for me before we get out of here. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. And I will be back tomorrow with another edition of Locked On Cavs.